The letters started arriving in 1976. In Circleville, Ohio, a small town south of Columbus, residents began receiving anonymous letters in their mailboxes. The letters were handwritten. They contained personal secrets, details that only people close to the recipient would know. They also contained threats. The first known targets were a school bus driver named Mary Gillispie and the superintendent of the local school district. The letters accused them of having an affair. Whether the accusation was true wasn't the point. The point was that the writer knew things, and the writer wanted everyone else to know they knew. The letters named names. They contained allegations, some true, some fabricated, and they made demands. If the recipients didn't do what the writer wanted, more letters would go out. More people would find out. It was blackmail wrapped in the format of gossip, in a small town where everyone knew everyone. Ron Gillispie received a letter stating that if he didn't force his wife to end the alleged affair, the writer would expose her further. The letter said Ron had 24 hours to respond. On August 19, 1976, Ron Gillispie got into his truck and drove out alone. He was found dead in a single vehicle crash shortly after. His truck had gone off the road. A gun was found in the truck. The death was ruled an accident. The investigation was inconclusive. The letters kept coming. After Ron's death, Mary Gillispie became the primary target. The letters to her became more threatening, more detailed, more personal. They revealed information that could only have come from someone watching her closely, someone in her life, or watching from a distance with access she didn't know she'd given. She went to investigators. They were aware of the letters but had little to work with. No fingerprints, no traceable postmarks that narrowed the origin, handwriting that was altered across different letters. In 1976, a booby-trapped package was sent to Mary Gillispie. It was a box rigged to discharge a firearm when opened. Mary did not open it herself. Her brother-in-law, Paul Freshour, did. He survived but was seriously injured. Paul Freshour was subsequently investigated as a possible suspect in the letter-writing campaign. In 1983, he was convicted of the attempted murder of Mary Gillispie, not for the letters themselves, but for the booby-trapped package. He maintained his innocence until his death. Here is where the case becomes impossible to resolve. The letters continued after Paul Freshour was convicted and imprisoned. One letter, sent while he was incarcerated, included a message that seemed to anticipate this problem. It said, roughly, that no one could stop the letters, not even if the supposed suspect was in prison. Officials interviewed Freshour about the continuing letters. He denied sending them. He denied being able to send them. His access to outgoing mail was reviewed. The letters kept coming anyway. Some investigators concluded Freshour had a confederate. Others concluded he had never been the writer at all, that the real letter writer was still free, taunting investigators by continuing the campaign from outside. The letters slowed after Freshour was released from prison in 1994. They did not stop entirely for some time after that. The campaign, from its documented start in 1976 to the last known letter, spanned approximately 18 years. No additional charges were ever filed. No second suspect was ever formally identified. The conviction of Paul Freshour for the booby trap has never been overturned, though questions about it have never been fully resolved. What is not in dispute? Someone in Circleville, Ohio, someone who lived there, who moved in those circles, who knew which marriages were fragile and which secrets people were hiding, spent 18 years mailing destruction to their neighbors. They knew what would hurt. They knew how to make it credible. They knew which details to deploy and which to hold back. They operated with the patience of someone who was in no hurry, who had a plan and was working it. Ron Gillispie died. Paul Freshour went to prison. Mary Gillispie received letters for years after her husband was dead and her brother-in-law was incarcerated. Other residents received letters they never made public. The writer was never identified with certainty. The case remains officially unsolved. Circleville is the kind of place where your mail comes from people who know your name. where a letter in your box might be from a neighbor, a friend, a colleague, a church member. For 18 years in that town, it might also be from someone who knew things about you, who was watching, who was deciding over their kitchen table in the evening whether to use what they knew or hold on to it a little longer. The letters were handwritten. They were mailed from within the area. They arrived in the boxes of people who lived ordinary lives in an ordinary town. And for 18 years, the person who wrote them walked among those people, went to the same stores, drove the same roads, maybe sat next to the people they were terrorizing in church. Nobody ever pointed to them definitively and said, "That one. That's the one who wrote the letters." Somewhere in Ohio, or somewhere they moved to later, that person lived out the rest of their life, knowing exactly what they'd done, never saying a word,